Peace. So I'm back again for another session on a topic which is of interest to me because this is how I began to turn against the so-called Muslims on the earth. And the topic is about the Hadith and Sunnah. The Hadith actually means story, and Ahadith means stories, and the sunnah means way, mannerism, or characteristics of somebody. So these Muslims have invented a way of life, a so-called religion they call Islam, that is based on the hadith of Muhammad and the ways of Muhammad, his characteristics, how he acted, and everybody has to abide by that. Otherwise, they are outcast from their false religion that they have created. And it's interesting that one man's way of life is what everybody needs to follow, but the reality is obviously a lot different than that. So what I want to look at is what the Quran says about Hadith and Sunnah. These words are mentioned in the Quran in different contexts, but I want to go over them and we can see together what Hadith actually refers to in the Quran in the highest sense. And the other is obviously Sunnah. Sunnah is also mentioned. So these people have invented this and they follow nothing but the Hadith and the Sunnah of Muhammad, which they have diligently guarded for the last 1400 years and maintain that it is the absolute truth, just like the Christians have maintained the Bible perfectly after Jesus left, and 300 years later they put it together. Similarly, these so-called Muslims have done the same with the Hadith. It was never put together when Muhammad was around, because he would never have let it happen in the first place. That's obvious from the Quran. But they put it together 200 odd years. That's what the history goes. I don't know what the truth is, but it wasn't done when he was there. They even say that the Quran was put together 50, 60 years or whatever after Muhammad died. You think God's going to leave them to put together this Quran? The followers of Muhammad were better than Muhammad and the Spirit and the angels? I mean, he'd already given the covenant to the people before, the sons of Israel, with Jesus and Moses, and took a promise that you're not going to hide the book, you're not going to change it, you're going to follow what's in it, you're going to study what's in it, you're going to deliver what's in it. And it's obvious what they did, other than what they were told, obviously. So you think God would have left these idiots to take care of putting together the Quran after Muhammad died? That is a joke in itself, in any case. So let's look at what the Quran says about Hadith, where it's mentioned in the Quran. I'll go through all of them that I can find, and then we can make a pretty good picture of what is actually being said about Hadith in the Quran. And you also wonder that, God put these words in there. You think he might have known that they're going to do this? Create a Hadith and Sunnah which does not exist. So here's the first place. During that day, they will want those who rejected and disobeyed the messengers, if she shapes with them the earth, and not he will hide God a story. So the word is hadith, hadithan here. Hadith, it comes from hadith, story. That day, no story will be hidden. Okay, so let's go to the next place. Where what you be, it will overcome you the death. And if you be in a constellation covered, and if comes to them good, they say this from within God. And if comes to them evil, they say, this from within you. Say, all from within God. But what these, the people, not they can, they figure out a story. So this is again, the word is story. A story doesn't have to be a lie or the truth. It can be either or. You have to figure out whether a story is the truth or the lie. We have been accustomed to understand that, oh, he's telling a story means it's a lie. That's just another delusion and deception people put in front of us, that we don't look at the reality. We just think that when somebody's saying a story, it's obviously taken as negative without thinking. and we have to take it as the evidence presented and what it's referring to, and we can check the facts. Obviously, I don't say anything other than I bring the story of the book, the Quran. That's my story. My story is the story of the book. Whatever I bring will be from the Quran, referring to God, reference to God. Obviously, I'm not talking about my life. The story that I bring from God will be the Quran, and then the Torah, and then the Bible, in that order today. So let's go to the next place. And has come down over you in the book, that when you hear signs of God, they reject with them, and they mock with them. But don't you sit with them till they vainglory in story other than it. Surely you then their example. Surely God will gather the hypocrites and the rejectors in hell altogether. So again, the word is story, hadith here. They vainglory in a story other than it. So now it's referring to a story other than this story, it. This is the story. Again, and when you see those, they vainglorying in our signs, but turn away over them till they vainglory in story other than it. So this is referring to a story that is not in the Quran. So don't sit with them if they may mock the Quran. And of what he surely makes you forget, the Satan, but don't you sit after the reminder with the people, the wrongdoing. Or not they looking kingship of the heavens and the earths and what creates God from a thing, and that maybe that it be already close their term. But with which story after it will they believe? So now it's talking about which story after it. It is pointing to the Quran, referring to the story, and which story other than it will they believe? Okay, I can tell you which story they're going to believe. They have like 30 volumes of this in 3 different versions. You can go look him up if you want. You can type in hadith of the Muslims, and you will get lots of people showing you what actually Muhammad said other than the Quran. Already is in their explanations instruction to those with the sense. Not is a story it made up, but confirms what in front of it and explains everything, and guidance and mercy to people they believing. So when God says it isn't a story that has been made up, what is it referring to? Obviously this Quran. We're talking about this Quran. This is a story that explains everything. It has got explanations in the stories of what God has sent, instructions to those who have the sense, common sense, when we use our senses, the insight that we have, and explains everything. So when God says this, and then someone comes and tells you that I follow the Quran, but it's not enough, and I have to go and find the Hadith and Sunnah of Muhammad, which is how I learn how to implement my religion, you'll have a tough time that day, buddy. But maybe you destroy your soul over their remnants. If not, they believe with this, the story, irritated. So this, what is this? The story. The story is the Quran. Hadith, the same word. It's the same word. And has come to you story of Moses. Hadith, same word, story of Moses. These signs of God, we read them over you with the truth. But with which story after God and his signs will they believe? I'll tell you, go look it up. The Hadith, again, the word is Hadith. They're using the same word, Hadith. You wonder why God only let them use this? You think God might have known what they were going to do? Has come to you story of guests of Moses, the honored. Again, the word Hadith. You know what a story is. So let them come with a story example of it if they be truthful. Now this is a taunt, example of it. It is the Quran. Come with another story, its example, if you be truthful, if they be truthful. You're not going to be able to. You can't repeat this Quran. But from this, the story you're wondering. Again, Hadith, this, the story. This is the story. Hadith. These Muslims are going to have a tough time that day. I can guarantee you that. But with this, the story you're pushing away. Again, Hadith, same thing. But leave me and those they falsify with this, the story. Soon we will come to them from directions not they know. Again, Hadith, this, the story. The Quran is the Hadith. So now I'm already up in this point, you know where this is going. But with which story after it will they believe? So this is a question. It's God is asking, which story after it will they believe? And he writes Hadith. God obviously knows what's going to happen. Has come to you story of Moses. Again, Hadith. Hadith is a story. This is the story. Has come to you story of the forces, story of Pharaoh and Thamud and all these guys. Has come to you, story of the covering. This is when the end comes. Has come to you. Hadith. So this is where hadith is mentioned, and there is no reference to any hadith but the Quran to follow. There is no way that anything is said to us except the Quran to follow. Now here again is a plural, ahadith. They call them ahadith as well. And like that, he chooses you your Lord, and he will teach you from explanation of the stories, and he will complete his favor over you and over family of Jacob, like what completed it over your fathers from before, Abraham and Isaac. Surely your Lord knowledgeable. Why? So Jacob is telling Joseph here. And the word story is ahadith. He will teach you how to explain the stories. This is stories reference to what he will see in dreams. He will see explanations, examples, which he will be able to figure out when people bring him details and tell him their visions and dreams. So this is obviously not pointing to this story, but just reference the word is stories. So then we sent our messengers one after another. All what came to people her messenger, they falsified him. So we followed some of them others, and we made them stories, but a way to people, not they believing. So again, the word ahadith is used as stories. They were stories. They were made into stories because you don't see them anymore. You can only see their stories. And from the mankind one, he purchases light, the stories, to his making astray over path of God without knowledge, and he takes it mockingly, those to them punishment lowly. So now here's the hadith that you have of Muhammad, a hadith. He purchases light, the stories. This Quran is the story. They take all the hadith outside and they wrap the Quran with all the garbage, absolute delusion and deception, destroying the fundamental meaning of the Quran. So here it is, And when you read over him our signs which are in the Quran, turns arrogantly, like that not he hears them, like surely in his ears heaviness, but inform him with punishment grievous. Here we go. So now we know where the light stories are outside the Quran. So this is basically, and God sends down good, the stories, book of similar examples. Shiver from it skins of those they fear their Lord, then calm their skins and their hearts to remembrance of God. That guidance of God, he guides with it any he wishes, and one he makes astray, God, but not to him from guide. So again, he sends down good, the stories, book of similar examples. So there are stories in this story. These are the stories we need to follow, not the one written outside. It's book of similar examples, and obviously the other books have the same stories, the Torah and Injil, which we've been talking about significantly in significant details over the last month or so, especially, and since I started speaking on this subject. So this is story. So, after reading all of this, if someone can come up with the explanation from this Quran that the hadith is something outside the Quran, then his delusion runs deep. There is no hope for him to climb out of that delusion. And that is the state of mind. They have been fooled. When they are fooled, they will not accept that they are fooled because they've been doing it all their lives. They can't accept that that state that they are in, and they will not be able to come out of it. And that's the way where most people fall. They're deluded, and since the whole life has gone by, nothing will change that, because they have done too much harm to their souls, and the covering over their hearts is too strong, too opaque. Their hearts are stained and they're diseased. They will not see the way. So now let's go to the Sunnah. So here's the first one. Way of those have we sent before you from our messengers, and not will you find to our way modification. So Sunnah. So he's explaining the way of those from before you. This is how it is. The way of Muhammad is the same way of those before him. Not will you find to our way modification. So this is the way of those before, which is, whose way is that? God's way, obviously. They all followed the manner of God, what he taught them, how to deal, how to act, how to react. And not stops the mankind that they believe. Behold, comes to them the guidance. and they ask forgiveness of their Lord, except that comes to them way of the first, or it comes to them the punishment facing. The word is, comes to them sunnat of the first. The first are the ones before us. So this is the sunnah. This is the word sunnah, in the Quran, talking about the same way will come to you. So what do you think, is Muhammad bringing a different way? Obviously it's the same way, and the same way is going to befall these people that befell those before them. This is how God works. Nor is over the prophet from problem in what accepts God to him, way of God in those who pass from before, and his command of God a measure to be measured. Again, the way is sunnah, sunnat Allahi, way of God. There is no way of Muhammad. Muhammad follows the way of God, and God has his own way with everybody. There is no one who will get around God's way, and the way is always constant. His way will never change. There will be no modification. It's not like God destroyed them, he's not going to destroy us. It's not like God killed all of them and he's not going to kill us for some reason or give us death. Let's put it more mildly. We will be all given death, and there's no escape from that. We will all be destroyed in the end. The whole earth will be destroyed. That is the way of God that is written. He destroyed almost all the earth with Noah, and he's destroyed many generations before us. So he will continue destroying mankind till the end comes, and he has sorted out all the souls, which will go to the garden and which will go to the hellfire. This is the whole game going on here, which most people are unaware of. Way of God in those who pass from before, and not will you find to way of God change. They will be cursed. Where what they captured, they will be grabbed and they killing. So this is obviously those who are fighting the messenger. If they don't change, they will be cursed and they'll be killed. Way of God in those who pass from before, and not will you find to way of God change. Sunnat Allahi, way of God, and not will you find to way of God change. It's not going to change. It's going to happen again. It's happened every time. Muhammad is no different. No messenger is any different than the one before him. There is only one messenger whose people were not punished in the earth after he came and went, and that was Jonah. And that's because Jonah screwed up. And the story of the fish and his time spent in it because of his rebelling against God is pretty clearly mentioned in the Bible and the Quran. Arrogant in the earth and plotting the evil, and not against truth, the plotting the evil, except with its keeper. But are they looking except ways of the first? But not will you find to way of God change, and not will you find to way of God modification. So, sunnat al-awwaleen, sunnah of the first, but not will you find way of God from change, and not will you find a way of God from modification. Here you go, sunnah. This is what sunnah means. There is no sunnah other than a way, and the only way is the way of God and the way of the first. They were all destroyed. These will all be destroyed eventually, no doubt in that. So that is sunnah. So, when you look at these two words which have been made into a complete religion on the earth, and if you question this in the so-called Muslim world, you are branded basically a rebel. They call you rebel, and then they kill you for it because you've turned against the way of Muhammad and his hadith, which has nothing to do with the Quran. Muhammad himself said that he warns you with this, the Quran, and he cannot change it. He follows what inspired to him in the Quran. Now the messenger can judge based on the Quran at any time, any messenger. Anyone, myself, any other messenger who comes with this book, we can judge mankind depending on what this book says with the reality that is in front of us. That judgment holds for that time, for that instance, for that situation. You can't just say, okay, this happened and this was judged, this was the outcome, this will apply now forever. No, it doesn't work like that. The judgment of the Quran applies forever. The judgment of the Torah, the judgment of the Bible, they apply forever. They're timeless books. There is no time frame that is related to any of these books that it will only apply for now and not forever. God knows what's going to happen forever. He knows the big picture, and he's testing us in who is going to follow the path to salvation and who will follow the path to the hellfire. I mean, that is the whole trial on the earth. That's why we're here. He's testing us. He knows what generally everybody's going to do, but the few that will not will go the other way. And he's already said he's going to fill hell with the demons and the men altogether. It's written several times in the Quran, and most of mankind will dwell in the hellfire. If you don't like it, it's not my place to tell you, no, it's okay, we'll all go to the garden. No, we're not all going to the garden. Most of us are going to the hellfire. Only those who turn to God, ask His forgiveness, follow the path of the messengers, not one, all of them. And if you follow one true messenger, you will follow all of them, because they don't separate from each other. Muhammad doesn't come and say, don't follow Jesus. Moses doesn't come and say, don't follow Abraham, and so on and so forth. All of them are following the same message, and the message is clear. The Quran is absolutely clear in joining all the messengers together and explaining that the way is of God and it will never change. So when they come up with hadith and they overturn what is clear in the book of God, and you can see so many examples. I've seen so many hadiths that totally overturn what the Quran is saying, and it's absolute rejection of God. In Arabic, the word is kufr. Kafir, they call it unbeliever, but kafir means rejecter. Kufr is rejection. It's a rejection of the book. For example, they say there are 5 prayers during each day. Where is this written in the Quran? It is not. It's a lie. There are only 3 prayers on a daily basis that are written in the Quran. And there are the morning prayer, the midday prayer or in between prayer, and the evening prayer. Go ask the people who hold the Torah. They'll tell you, yeah, there are 3 prayers God wrote. It's not like God wrote 3 for them and then suddenly, oh yeah, I'm going to write 5 for you. But bottom line with prayer is you got to connect with God all the time. Prayer is a connection with God. So this is just one example. There are so many. I mean, like the Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr, there's no such thing in the Quran. And they follow, and they have so many rituals, so many rites and rituals they have to go through to do these Eids. And, once for 3 days, you got to do this now. All garbage, absolute garbage. And this is just the beginning. Their 4 pillars, their faith, their understanding what faith is based on their hadith. It's like you go ask them and you won't get a straight answer from any of them. The Quran is pretty straight. It will tell you exactly what the faith is if you read it. Of course, the bottom line is nobody reads this book. It's poetry. It's too complicated. It's too, well, read what's easy for you. God is not going to take you to task if you can't understand all His book. And most people will not understand all His book. The messengers are the ones who understand most of the book. The rest follow the messengers or take what they can and follow what they can, which is clear. And there's much that is clear, and there's much that is convoluted in the book. And there are parables and there are straight directives. So, I tell you, follow the straight directives and you won't go astray. You go into the parables without understanding the foundations of this book, you will go astray. And when you go into these Hadith and Sunnah of so-called their Muhammad, which doesn't exist in the Quran, if you listen to the Muhammad from the Quran, he'll be smacking them if they ever did anything other than what the Quran says to do, and judge with what is sent down in the Quran. I mean, you can go look it up. The Quran does not tell anyone to go anywhere but in the Quran to make the judgments and to understand. So these Hadiths and Sunnah are absolute lies, and whoever puts them next to the Quran and holds them with the same regard are partnering with God. God does not partner in His command anyone. This is His command. He sent His messenger with this book. That's the book we need to follow. If you believe this book, obviously, I don't care if those who don't believe, they can do what they want. I'm talking about those who actually hold this book. They must follow this book. And then the book tells you, go read the Torah, and don't separate the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran. You will know when you put them all together, read them together, which parts of the Bible have been modified, have been corrupted, and the deception and delusion that has been implemented, that has been added into those books. And it's pretty easy. I mean, I don't have any problem. I read a lot of the Bible. I've read a lot of the Torah. I don't read them all. I don't need to. I just need to verify for myself. When I have a doubt, I go there. Is this what it means? And I find some places, yeah, it actually corroborates exactly. It helps me out with understanding the Quran. And these guys will never touch the Bible because it has been abrogated, it's been destroyed. We cannot touch it. It's going to make us astray. We'll start calling Jesus Son of God. Really, the Quran is telling you there's no God except God. There's no Son of God. How are you going to go astray now? Anyway, so I just wanted to put this in the middle here because most people argue this point that what about the Hadith, what about the Sunnah? Junk them, burn those things. The only thing you need to follow if you believe the Quran is the Quran itself. So anyway, I'll come back next time with another topic if wishes God. Till then, peace.